Okay.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Executive Session for December 15th. Calling the special order calendar decision items. Calendar number, or item number 1, calendar number 105984 BZ, 94361 Kings Highway, Brooklyn.
Okay, with this one, they corrected the affidavit of ownership and authorization. With respect to the sign, if it's an advertising sign, so they were supposed to be establishing that the sign was legal, and instead of providing us with a permit or something from DOB to basically show it was signed off, they made an argument as if that's the argument you make to DOB. And that's, I think, not what we need. So I don't know whether this is within 900 feet of Ocean Parkway, which is an arterial. It's close to Ocean Parkway. I just don't know if it's 900 feet, in which event it would have needed to be registered with DOB. In any event, there should have been a permit for it. And I went on to BIS and I saw only permits for accessory signs, none for an advertising sign. And the photos from the 30s show the sign was blank at the time, so I don't even know if it was a legal sign, even though I don't really know how they were regulated in the 30s. I'm afraid that I would prefer to defer this because it's an opportunity to find out what's going on with that sign. Or they come up with a permit quickly to show us that the sign is legal. They only included one drawing of the set of drawings, so they need to submit the entire set because it travels all together. And in any event, approval would be conditioned on the hours stated, since it's called a 24-hour gym. And that the C of O and the PA permit has to be obtained within 1 year, because they've been pushing that off for a very long time. Anybody else on that one? You agree about waiting on the sign?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 2, calendar number 42705 BZ, 133-47 39th Avenue, Queens.
Okay. They resolved 3 of the 4 ECB violations. They stated that the 4th, with $5,000, will be paid, and they request that we approve the application before that's cleared up. Not really sure why. There is now also a 5th ECB violation of $830 for failure to certify correction that was issued in October, and an 1105 violation for the same reason. There seems to be a conflict also. When I went on BIS, I got a different result than they printed out. I saw that the 1017 violation is still outstanding, whereas their BIS printout shows apparently it's paid. So I don't really understand why that is. I'm not sure why we can't just have the fines paid now. It's because after that, there's no enforcement opportunities. But in any event, the approval would be conditioned on the site not being used as a parking lot in the interim before construction starts. Anybody else? Does everyone agree that we should wait on the fines?
I think they would have to pay the fines before they get their C of O.
They certainly would need to do that.
Right.
Right, but they could also just never
They
get
can
their C of O.
explain why they didn't pay that last outstanding fine.
They said that they thought it had been handled at the last hearing, but it wasn't. But I don't understand, what's the big deal? You go to ECB and you hand them a check. You don't have to go to a
Maybe they're saying
hearing.
they already cleared it up and they don't want to pay that $5,000.
Yeah, that's not what they said, though.
Okay.
They didn't say we paid everything. They said they thought it was cleared up. Maybe they thought that they would not have to pay the fine. I don't know.
We can explain that, perhaps.
Yeah, okay. I think you can even pay ECB fines online.
Continued hearing items, item number 3, calendar number 36487 BZ, 1710 through 1720 Flatbush Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, they removed the trash bin. They moved the trash bin inside of the building. It really will need to stay there. The photo also shows the building graffiti-free, but you can see graffiti from another picture on like the back of, I don't actually know what it was the back of. It's an area sort of in the middle. And the clothing bin is shown on the drawings to be moved against the building. So I'd be okay with this on condition. Conditions that there's no parking on the sidewalk, no repair work to be conducted outside, the entire site to be maintained graffiti-free and free of trash, the trash bin to be stored inside the building. Is that okay?
Yes. That's good.
The vice chair, who could not be here, did have one question. She has a photo of a vehicle and asks, why is the same car without plates still in the photos? So just wanted to know that.
What? So that we don't, okay. So she visited the site recently?
Yeah.
I actually have a question. It was stated at the last hearing that the parking that we had noticed on the sidewalk was as a result of the cars that were parked not by their business, but it was an abutting business. And we had suggested maybe they should take the responsibility of towing it or call a towing company. I'm wondering, does it make sense to have a sign on that wall saying any car parked on the sidewalk will be towed at owner's risk, something as a warning so that whoever is going to park there is aware of the...
Okay, that sidewalk parking will be towed. Cars parked on the sidewalk will be towed. You can make that a condition. Okay.
Okay. Item number 4, calendar number 58591 BZ, 222 through 44 Braddock Avenue, Queens.
They provided photos showing a lean-to and roof sign removed and planting installed, as well as the extent of the stockade fencing. In the photo of the planting, I noticed that the fencing behind it is in need of painting. It should be painted. But I also am wondering why the planting plan doesn't show more extensive planting, since it looks like there's room for it. And also the drawings need to specify the planting and the number of trees. It's just got a few little circles haphazardly placed. Any other comments on this?
I don't think we ever got the community board vote.
Ah.
I had a question, and specifically trying to understand how the circulation of vehicles to and from the facility happens, especially using those 3 curb cuts. And specifically, my question is there a need for 2 curb cuts on Braddock, especially when there are 2 curb cuts that are located quite close to the intersection of Winchester and Braddock, one on Winchester and one on Braddock? And given that this is an auto repair service, I'm trying to understand why there's a need for 3 curb cuts to access the facility, and if it's worth considering to close down one of the curb cuts or the rolling gates. There are 3 rolling gates. So if they...
I think they explained that in one of the hearings, that in terms of the maneuverability, so the prior approval required that they remove one of the curb cuts.
Right.
And this time they're asking again if they can keep it because they never removed it. And they were saying that in terms of how they maneuver the cars, they really do need to have them come from the street. Otherwise, they can't get as many cars on the site. But it doesn't sound like they're keeping cars on the street. But they need to be able to, like you can see how they block up the route through one of them,
Right.
and that's responsible for at least 4 spaces probably.
Right, yeah, that was one of the
Right.
things. Yeah.
So in which event, they'd have to get rid of at least 4 spaces.
I see, okay.
The vice chair also has some questions. She notes that when Commissioner Chanda and her made a site visit, the iron gate and the sliding chain link gate on Braddock were in need of repair and painting. The curb was crumbling, and she asks, have they done any work to the iron gate? She also notes that the fencing along Winchester needed repair and painting, that it's rusty, and thought that in order to re-examine the curb cut issue, that providing a circulation plan would be a good idea. And then the question about the sales on the site, the plans show cars awaiting sales, and then in the previous approved plans and the proposed, but on page 5, they say that there are no sales. And so she wanted to clarify, did they take the sales out, or is this just not happening?
Just looking to see whether.
I can't speak to the
Yeah.
veracity of these.
Because, okay. Just want to make sure that, one time that we did this, we read last time's comments. So I want to make sure that they're the current ones. Okay. So we never did receive a circulation plan, though, I don't believe, right?
Right.
Okay, so, okay. So the question of the 2 curb cuts still stands because it hasn't been established. And I guess part of it is, what would happen if there were 4 fewer spots? What does that do to operations? Okay. Anybody else want to?
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 5, calendar number 30103 BZ, 1103 East 22nd Street, Brooklyn. I would note that the vice chair is recused on this.
Right, and so we're going to close this one. Okay.
Okay. Item number 6, calendar number 1612 BZ, 184 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. With respect to the environmental issues, I'm just starting that. We need a revised text memo that further recaps the initial environmental review and the effects of the proposed project changes on the environmental impact areas. We need a copy of the previously submitted EAS and the traffic data and the DOT letter of no objection from the previous approval. With respect to the RAP and the installation of the SSDS, no modification to the RAP is needed. However, we're hoping to be able to enroll the school in the Office of Environmental Remediation's monitoring program to make sure that the SSDS is in fact kept running. For me, the main issue is about the multiple lobbies and what that means. The applicant provided what they describe as 2 examples of schools with multiple lobbies. I note that one of them, Benos Yaakov, has an access to a play yard that passes by the cafeteria, also known as the catering hall, and is also the means of egress from a fire stair. That isn't a lobby. That's how you get to the play area, and that's how you egress. The lobby in this case is at the center of the building, the lobby in that case is at the center of the building leading to a corridor and passing lower school classrooms. I note also that men's and women's toilet rooms are adjacent to each other, and there is no formal distinction between men's and women's entrances to the catering hall cafeteria. Both of those issues were, or both of those conditions were given as reasons for needing separate men's and women's entrances and separate toilet areas, whereas in the examples given, they're not at all separate. The other one, similarly, the Beth Rivka School, that auditorium is in the cellar and accessed via an elevator or a fire stair adjacent to the main lobby. At the cellar, there is a corridor leading from the fire stair and the elevator past the auditorium and to the back entrance where the school buses park. This also serves as the egress from the fire stair and the second means of egress corridor from the auditorium. It is not a separate lobby. Similarly, the men's and women's toilet rooms are adjacent to each other, and there is no formal distinction between men's and women's entrances to the auditorium. The previously approved project only had, and the previously approved project that was before us only had one lobby and no devoted toilet rooms. So I'm actually not persuaded at all that this is a program requirement. As mentioned at the prior hearing, the previously approved project had a stairwell and an elevator leading directly from the school into the auditorium. It was direct, it was obvious, the students go right into the auditorium. In this version, this version has almost no connection between the school and the auditorium. In fact, students have to go outside in order to access the lobbies to the auditorium. I don't understand that at all as a program for children. The idea of having them go out in the cold and rain in order to be able to go to an auditorium that is potentially used every day makes absolutely no sense to me and reinforces my concern that this auditorium is being designed for other purposes than school purposes. And then just to finish some other points, what the relevance of the chart is that shows the number of buildings with multiple schools in them. This is the same school. This school is the same school with grades K through 12. We see many of these, and they only have one lobby. We even have seen one with no lobby at all. That's the ones where they go right up the staircases onto the floors. The architect states that there is a problem with lowering the building height by dropping the slab somewhat because of the split level entry and the staircase's relationship to the office window. I need that explained. I don't understand that. I don't understand what the problem is with a split level lobby. We've seen it in other schools. And why can't the stair continue to run in the same direction as the proposed? They reconfigured the layout and made it look more complicated by redirecting the stair, which I don't understand the purpose of. They provided a bird's eye photograph to show other buildings in the area and their heights. I'd like to know whether those are measurements to the bulkhead or the roof, because sometimes they seem particularly high given the height of those buildings, given the number of floors of those buildings. And also a room schedule was provided. Room schedules are supposed to show how the rooms will be programmed on an hourly basis to show that all rooms are utilized to the fullest extent possible. What was provided instead was a room listing that doesn't tell us if the rooms are really used. So those are my comments.
I wanted to just add a comment to your comment concerning the lobbies. Initially I read their explanation. I was like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense, men in one, women in the other. And then I took a look at the plans, and you notice that the meat kitchen opens up directly onto the lobby, and that led me to think to myself, well, wait a minute, this lobby is obviously serving another function, this auditorium is obviously serving another function than just a gathering for the students.
Right.
And so I think that they really need to talk about the program connection between the meat kitchen and the auditorium, because it's not a lunchroom.
Right.
And so it leads me to think that there must be some sort of heavy extracurricular use for that auditorium. I hate to say catering, but it really does suggest catering.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of my comments. The other comment had to do with the program and the plans. They said that they were discontinuing the use of the first floor roof for a play area for the students. However, if you look at the plans, the first floor roof in the transfer section still states play area, and if you look at the second floor plans, there are entrances onto that roof just like there were in the first set of plans. Mm-hmm. So they need to figure out what's going to be going on over there and correct the plans to match what they say their program is.
Mm-hmm. Or the other way around.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. You know, the meat kitchen has these double doors going into the auditorium. I would like them to give, I guess they're saying they're not going to have fixed seats, but I would like to have a seating plan or some kind of layout for the use of that space.
What you really want to see is a banquet table plan.
Right, exactly.
So, the other thing was, they don't really give us the square footage of all these areas, you know, the area of the women's lobby, the area of the floor area of the meat kitchen. And if they could explain they're saying that they need this space for parent-student events. So if they could explain the parent-student events, how many men attend, women attend, children attend, how frequently do they occur? Also, the first and second floor non-auditorium spaces have 9-foot floor-to-ceiling heights and 3-foot beam depths. And, you know, since it's only over a portion of the building, I didn't understand why they still needed those 3-foot beam depths. Also, they have to excavate down to meet the level of the adjoining footing of the buildings. They can't set their footings midway down, because it would put pressure against the adjacent buildings' walls. So they have to go down and meet the footing depths. So my question is, well, why can't they, instead of underpinning everything, just meet the adjacent footings and start, you know, construction at that level? Could they possibly do that and reduce some of the costs? I think the building height survey was helpful. That it's 48 feet did not seem excessive in the area, but I had a lot of other questions.
I have a question about the depth of the footings. The assumption always is that they have to underpin, but my experience out there in the world is that fewer and fewer neighbors are giving license to underpin. You're saying,
Right.
you're not touching my property. So in that case, they have to use alternate means anyway. And so everyone's saying, oh, we have to underpin, it's going to cost all this money to do it, but they are not acknowledging that very often these days, they're not going to get permission. So the alternate is a step footing, right?
Well, they still have to go down to the level of the adjacent footing.
Right.
And start their foundation there, and then step up if they move away.
Okay, but then the cost of underpinning
Is much less.
is less.
Yes.
But is a step footing less expensive to build than underpinning?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, so then that should factor into a lot of our conversations. Because in a certain way, we need to know, well, do you really have permission?
Well, they also want to avoid installing any excavation support along the street sides, which is like 50% of the perimeter. They don't want to do that either. I mean, they're just trying to save money,
Right.
basically, in their excavation.
Yeah,
I think you all have touched upon my concerns. I just want to add one very minor thing. And I was looking at all the other plans that were submitted. I noticed the trash refrigerator has been included in the loading area. But one plan shows it like access via ramp, another one via stairs. And some places it's much bigger, some places it's far away. I think it just needs to be done in a way where it's practical for somebody to remove the trash, and I think taking it down the ramp is easier than by stairs. And also the dump waiter that's been provided, I just want to make sure it would meet all the religious regulations, because it would be used for both kosher and dairy and non-dairy and other things. So I just want to make sure that that would meet the programmatic and other purposes, and that they have factored that into the location and the service it's going to provide. And I agree with the lobby. I think if those two lobbies are consolidated and integrated in a better way, the circulation can be much better, rather than it going through these circuitous hallways through and from, and yeah.
Yeah, there's actually no way to, you have to go through a fire stair.
Fire stairs.
And a tiny little door to get to the,
To get-
and then in
right.
front of the elevator lobby to get to the
Right.
auditorium.
Yeah.
Clearly, they don't have any intention that students go into this auditorium.
Not from the front door.
At least not from,
Yeah.
Well,
not
even
not
from
through the
that
building.
stairway.
Not through the
It's
stair-
not,
yeah.
Well, the fire stair doesn't lead you into the auditorium either.
Right.
You have to go
Fire
through
stair goes
the- yeah,
outside.
yeah.
So there is actually no other connection to the auditorium except through these exterior lobbies. So what kind of students, what kind of school is that? Okay.
The vice chair had similar questions. She says, why have a second entry to the stair from the street, stair exiting directly to the street? There was no need for this in the previous scheme. Why not have the same configuration as there was originally proposed? And she states that she doesn't see this is doing anything for the program.
Okay.
All right. Item number 7, calendar number 10 and calendar numbers 10 and 11 BZ, 115 and 121 Finley Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, I actually had no comments on this. Anybody else?
I felt that as required by DOB now, all their elevations should be given NAVD 88 instead of their, translating everything into Staten Island datum, which I don't think we use anymore. So just to make it clear, if they could give all their elevations in NAVD 88.
Okay.
Apparently, there was a, vice chair wants to know if they have a buyer now.
If they have a buyer?
If they do, she was
Because they
asking.
said
Yeah,
they
it's
didn't want to
true,
build
yeah.
speculatively.
Okay.
All right, appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 8, calendar number 308A, 3935 27th Street, Queens.
Okay, with this one, we actually didn't have any formal submission. We did receive information that, and you can see it online, that there's now a stop work order on the site. And we received something from Department of Buildings saying the stop work order was issued for failure to file a site safety plan because this is a site safety site. I find that violation kind of confusing because we have testimony from the prior hearing saying that that site safety plan had been filed and that the Best Squad was reviewing it. So I actually don't understand what's going on. And we need to find out what's going on. And it also says, I think these might have been related to scaffolding, but the violation dated the 1st of December, so just last week, basically, states that workers were on site installing needle beams, roof protection, scaffold delivery, and so on, with a expired new building permit, which we know it should have no NB permit. I don't know if needle beams are related to the scaffolding or related to actual work being done on the site, so that wasn't clear.
I thought that was related to the netting.
Okay.
But they also made a comment about that they were making it a site safety project because of structural stability issues.
Yes.
And I was wondering if that's something new? Did they review concrete core tests, or what are these structural stability issues?
I think at one point, I know we contacted DOB and told them that we were very, very concerned about this site. So they may have moved it to the site safety. And normally, I forget what the criteria are for being a site safety site, but normally it wouldn't have been a site safety site, and they brought it into that division because of the character of the construction. So, there may be a disconnect between what Best Squad and what DOB is doing, and so we can find out. Okay.
Okay. All right. Item number 9, calendar numbers 16314A through 16514A, 502, 504, 506 Canal Street, Manhattan.
Okay, on December 9th, we conducted a site visit to see the flood barriers had been assembled and kind of installed, even though they weren't actually in the identical place that they would be in this condition. The certified mail receipts that were provided are, it's hard to understand what they're associated with, they're just provided. And as they aren't addressed to the Canal Street addresses, it isn't clear those people are the tenants and what was mailed to them, as no cover letters to the tenants were provided. So I'd like to understand that the tenants were to be invited to attend this hearing. We have a November 24th letter from the architect stating that the waterproofing measures are cementitious concrete barrier on the crawl space walls extending up the underside of the first floor. Overlapping the water barrier above grade is Tyvek's air and water barrier on half-inch fence glass for the height of the building, plus sump pit and 2 sump pumps. My question, and this is the architect certifying this, my question is, this is a new architect, and the buildings were already done by the time this architect got here. So how has that architect established what is behind the finished walls? Did he do probes? Did he remove pieces of the sheetrock? I don't understand how he could possibly know that. I'd like clarification of whether the drawings match what he states is installed. And then he refers in that letter to photos that show the waterproofing in place. Nothing was submitted in this recent submission, and the last photos submitted in August were completely illegible. So they were taken like with a phone in the dark. So if you want to establish that those measures in place, we need more. The sump pump and the other protective measures described in the Vidaris report are not yet installed. I'd like to know when they're going to be installed. The Aquafence installer indicated the need for a sump pump also on the outside of the building during a flood. And if there's, for instance, heavy rains and so on, that you would really need to pump out for that. So and also the need for a ladder for first responders. We need to see those also on the drawings. And with respect to the emergency flood measures plan, the window shields should be installed, I think, before the flood barriers, and the door shields ready to be installed by the last person out the door, because the window shields actually may take some time, and they're already working. I don't see why you can't even be doing them both simultaneously, because you need to have guys go fetch the aqua fences, and while they're doing that, the shields could be installed. Also, the location of the flood barrier and flood shield storage areas should be stated on the emergency flood measures plan, which it's not. Any other comments?
This is the first time I'm reviewing this project, and I was a little concerned that the statement of fact way it was presented, it presented as a project that was going to happen, future plans and future conditions. When we went to the site, not only is it built, it's also occupied. So I just want to be on record saying that that's a little concerning to me.
Okay. So we found, just so you know, we found out by accident, literally by going online, and we found out that they were listing them for rental, and then it said rented. So we found out by accident that they were occupied, and then we had to get confirmation that they were occupied. So during the proceedings, they had been occupied, which they were not permitted to do, and we had Department of Buildings go and inspect. So, yeah, not pretty.
In this go-round, the statement of facts and findings completely omits the window and door shields, and that should be added back in. They still are on the plans. According to the waiver provisions, there's 5 criteria to meet, and they are not meeting item 2, although they are saying they meet item 2, which is all enclosures below the design flood elevation shall be usable solely for crawl space. They do not meet that. And I also mentioned this the last hearing. According to Aquafence, panels should be anchored to the ground to prevent the panel from skidding when the water starts to rise. And in my opinion, due to the location on Canal Street and the possibility of 12 by 12 timbers floating ashore, the flood shields should be anchored to the ground. So I think they should make that a definitive part of their plans and show that on the drawings. It also improves the seal pressure when the water starts to rise. So that's basically,
So they're going to have to apply for revocable consent from DOT to install the anchors. Okay.
The vice chair says, saw the gates in place, okay, wants to know why they don't want to put up the shutters, which I think she means the shields on the doors and windows, and wanted to know what LPC would think about those.
About
Well,
which the
there's-
shutters?
Shutters.
They're okay
They're
with.
okay with that?
because
Okay,
there's
I mean,
no,
Permanent
Right,
modification
it's just
of
something
the
that you just
facade.
push out and like screw in and it,
Oh, really? I forget, they're pressure, or you need to
they're
have a
pressure,
little?
there's
No,
no
okay.
track or anything that it
Yeah.
has to go on.
All right. Item number 10, calendar number 1215A and 1315A, 53 and 57 Prospect Place, Staten Island.
Okay. This one. I don't think I had any further comments.
Yeah, I think the alteration of the parking has improved continuation that is just.
Okay.
I didn't have any other issues either.
I didn't either.
Okay.
Okay. New cases, item number 11, calendar numbers 18206A through 21106A, Beach, 5th Street, Queens.
Okay, we seem to be missing the community board recommendation. I'd like to know, what will the effect on the existing state of work in place be if the buildings have to be elevated to comply with the flood regulations? And also, there is a chronology of work completed since the last approval that only covers work since April 2015. I just want to verify, was no work done since 2011?
That's what
My
they're saying,
understanding.
yes.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that. And then the actual expenditures chart shows committed values of 4.297 million and paid to date of 1.45 million. This doesn't match the 2.846 spent since 2011, or the total spent since the project inception, or the total spent by the time of the zoning change stated in the statement of facts. I just don't, there's two sets of numbers I don't understand.
Right, and those numbers have most probably changed as well. So I think there has to be a complete updating of the numbers in terms of the costs already expended, the amount that was paid has got to have been paid off by now.
Yeah.
And as well, the total cost of construction for the whole project has also gone up over time. So all of that should be updated.
I
Anybody
have the
else?
same questions. Do they have to lift everything that they've, sort of framed down already? And here's one set of plans, I think it's cluster 2 north on sheet Z002, where the elevations don't make any sense. I think it's an error.
Which cluster?
Cluster 2 north, sheet 002.
Okay.
The vice chair wants to see a construction schedule with anticipated completion dates.
And could they just give us a little more detail on the serious loss? Because it talks about, I understand that there are no attached homes allowed, and so basically they're going to have to rip out everything that's there and rebuild. But they talk about a net loss of $4 million. Could they just tell me the equation that leads to the net loss of $4 million?
Right, item number 12, calendar number 13615A, 521 Durant Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, we need the community board recommendation. We have a fire department letter requiring no parking signs on both sides of Durant Avenue, and a request that a note on the drawings be added that says the homeowners association will enforce the no parking regulations. And as we have started to do, we're going to require a restrictive declaration or restrictive covenants be recorded against the property to bind the property owners to this regulation about parking. I'd also just like clarification on what is the significance of the pending city planning text modification applications. I kind of assuming they're all needed in order to make this project happen, but they weren't clear at all. They just said that they need them. Anybody else?
I had a question about the fire department comments. They talk about there being a homeowners association. Will there be a homeowners association created for this? Because it's really only 3 homes. So that's my question. And if there isn't, then what would the fire department like in exchange?
All right. Zoning calendar decision items, item number 13, 3114 BZ, 165 Spencer Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, this one we need to defer because we're still waiting for DEP air quality and noise sign off. Right? Correct.
Voice comes with air quality.
Okay. Okay.
Calendar, or item number 14, calendar number 3514 BZ, 40-06 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, so this one, we did receive the corrected drawings that show the parking analysis for the entire building and to update showing the fire alarms and sprinkler systems already installed. Do we have fire department sign off? Yeah, okay, okay. Great, okay, great, okay.
Item number 15, calendar number 5114 BZ, 1369 East 28th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, they made the requested changes to the drawings, so we're good to go.
Item number 16, calendar number 14814 BZ, 11 Avenue A, Manhattan.
And we received the revised drawings that actually show balconies in the floor plans.
Item number 17, calendar number 4515 BZ, 23-10 41st Street, or 41st Avenue, Queens.
Okay, we did get the letter about the entity and that it's the same entity as DOI reviewed, which we have, yes, Brooklyn Builders, right, yeah, okay.
Item number 18, calendar number 5315 BZ, 10 East 53rd Street, Manhattan.
They amended the drawings to correct the floor areas as requested, so I think that's all we wanted.
Continued hearing items, item number 19, 30313 BZ, 506 510 Brook Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, this one, sorry. We are still awaiting DEP sign-off of the RAP and the CHASP. We do have the Phase 2 sign-off. We may receive the DEP sign-off today, hopefully. If so, then we can close. Okay. Anybody else, any other issues?
Item number 20, calendar number 32213 BZ, 4201 Main Street, Queens.
Okay, but this one, there's still, as of whatever day that was, yesterday, there is still a stop work order, a partial vacate order, violation for failure to certify correction of a Class 1 violation, 15 open ECB violations, and 12 open DOB violations. All of this has to be cleared before we can move on. We now have a photo showing the wall, from the exterior anyway, completely restuccoed and painted on the exterior, but another photo shows that it's completely raw and horrible on the interior. Careful when you take your photos, you know? So the whole idea is to improve the look of this site. I don't understand why we're playing games like this. This really feels like a game with children. There was also supposed to have been planting, and we don't see anything like this. I just don't understand why it's like every little step. This is much more expensive for the applicant to go little steps at a time like this. The planting boxes that are proposed are for little bits of ground cover and decorative low plants. The purpose of this planting is to shield the residential neighbors from the parking area and the noise. The plants have to be tall and thick, so the planting boxes, I think, are completely inadequate. They should also explain, I'd like to understand better why more of the parking can't be addressed with stackers to reduce the congestion on the site. I mean, it's really loaded up. It looks like a car sales area in the residential section. Why can't there be more stackers placed up against the commercial section, it seems? Yeah.
So Vice Chair Hinkson and I had gone on a field visit, and based on the field visit, what we noticed, as you pointed out, was the interior of the wall was not addressed. And in addition to that, it seems there are other businesses fronting on Main Street that access this parking lot from their property. And on top of it, there are portions of the parking lot that has become like a dumping ground. We saw lots of packaging boxes that were completely occupying quite a bit of the, I would say, the western section of the parking area. So again, I think if we want to provide better parking facilities, by cleaning up some of these locations, we can probably make those spaces available for parking, because nobody would want to park there where garbage is being collected. Right. So there are ways to provide additional capacity. And I think if we were to provide any stackers, I would say it should be away from the residential windows. It should be by the commercial area. And I agree, we should provide much more substantial planting to buffer.
Also, there was supposed to, a deed restriction was supposed to have been drafted and provided to council. I didn't see a copy of it in our submission here. I don't know whether council received anything, so I'd like them to speak to that. Any other comments about this?
I just think in general, they have to give us better photos of the interior of the site to show that they've cleaned up all the debris and stuff, in addition to everything else you mentioned.
Yeah, okay.
Item number 21-330-13 BZ, 2801 Brown Street, Brooklyn.
This one, they requested an adjournment.
Item number 22, calendar number 3014 BZ, 6101 16th Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay.
We're gonna get these comments on submission received Friday.
Okay, so there was, this is air quality? Okay, so we got a submission on Friday for air quality, and we expect to get DEP's comments on it in January sometime, mid-January? Late January, late January. They did provide an engineer's letter with respect to the building's ability to support new loads and the unsuitability of the building for cellar excavation. They added an indoor refrigerated trash area as requested. I'd like to understand how a disabled person actually gets into this building. It seems like there are stairs at every entrance, except there's a ramp on the side that takes you to a back corridor. I'd like to know whether that's an existing DOB-approved accessible route. They provided a traffic study that states that 73% of the 1,782 students walk alone or with a parent. That is 1,300 students plus a guess of 600 parents. That's a lot of people walking to the school. The traffic study shows, only looked at the delta between the existing school and the proposed. It should look at the totality of students on the site, especially with respect to pedestrian traffic. Also, I'm actually not understanding the delta used in the study. The current school population is 1,191 students to increase to 1,782 for 591 students plus faculty plus parents. The study assumes 393 students arriving and departing at peak hours. I'd like to know how that modal split was arrived at. Are they assuming absenteeism at the level of 200 students? I didn't understand that at all. The building heights, with respect to the building height study, the map shows that you need to go almost 1,500 away from the site to find even one building over 70 feet tall, and almost 2,000 feet away to find two others. The proposed is even larger than the massive 4-story middle school on 65th Street, which sits on a huge lot set back from the street with playgrounds at its rear. The other taller public schools that are further away have the same situation, surrounded by open space. Within 500 feet of this site, there are a few buildings in the 50 to 65-foot range, so you could make an argument for that height, but I think this building is too tall. And the reason it's too tall is it's being asked to do too much. There's this mikvah that is an adult mikvah that's unrelated to the school activity. I appreciate, the camaraderie with your students where you graduated from and so on. We all have camaraderie with where we went to school, but that's not a school-related function. And the post-secondary seminary is asking too much unless you put it in the cellar. I mean, I just don't understand how this is the only school we've seen that's putting all of this in, and it's making the building enormous for this neighborhood, and I don't think it's justifiable.
I agree with you that this building is really too large. I looked at the submission that they had about the mikveh because my concern was that the mikveh was not really an educational or necessarily a religious use and shouldn't get the deference given to the school. And what they gave us back really shows that they even acknowledge that it really is more of a community service use at this point. And so therefore, I don't think it should get the deference. And this is really a question of FAR here because they are over FAR, and without the mikveh, they could put an awful lot of program into that cellar area. So I really think they have to seriously consider relocating it. I also had a question on the room utilization because, I believe I had asked questions about the lunchrooms and the gyms and why so many. And the lunchrooms, they showed the schedule that after 1:30, they're no longer used for lunch, but at least they are used for some sort of school program, whereas the gyms are only used until 12:20, and then they aren't used at all. So I don't understand why they can't make do with one gym and then just rotate the schedule so that's a fully used gym that's utilized the entire day. And then as for the traffic study, they talked about the bus parking, and they talked about how the school uses the empty lot adjacent to the building to park buses overnight. And I wanted to know whether or not the zoning permitted that use there.
Well, I think they're going to be building on that adjacent vacant lot.
Yeah, they are.
So that lot is no longer going to be available, and I think they should tell us where they propose to park the buses at night.
Anything else?
I think you've all picked up on my concerns.
Item number 23, calendar number 14914BZ, 3173 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. The architect reduced the incursion on the rear yard at the second floor to allow for a 26-foot rear yard as requested. Established that the lot was separately owned since 1961. I thought did a good job with that, actually. And moved the parking space back out of the front yard, so I think it's ready to close.
Okay. The afternoon calendar, zoning calendar, new cases. Item number 1, calendar number 28314BZ, 3255 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, just some are just observations. There's a 1929 survey that shows a one-story extension in the required rear yard and garage, similar to the existing conditions, so it looks like it's been like that a long time. I'd like the applicant to verify that on the 400-foot radius diagram is intended to show that there are only 18 houses within 400 feet that actually comply with the .5 FAR maximum. That's kind of what I got from the chart. Also, I would like them to provide a map showing the location of the houses within the .8 range of FAR that's being requested, so it's easier to understand the comparison to the proposed. It's really hard when there's a chart and then you don't know where all those are. You actually have to do the work yourself, and it should be done by the applicant. With respect to the rear yard study, if they could provide dimensional information on the map and indicate whether rear yard incursions are 1 or 2 stories. I'd also like them to explain why the extension at the second floor to match up with the existing rear wall line wouldn't be sufficient. It's already a reduced rear yard, like why can't you just stay there and go up? I admit though, in looking at the floor plans, that the layouts are extremely tight. And the photos and rear yard study of the immediately adjacent properties to the rear and one side do indicate that they have complying rear yards. The condition at the adjacent property, the other side though, is kind of wild. It's an illegal condition that was had a violation since 1989, where basically they built this effective 2-story structure all the way to the rear lot line. So in a certain way, this proposal's in response to that. You've got this neighbor who illegally has been encroaching on your backyard for 30 years. And it's strange that there were several violations over the course of the years and nothing was done. I'm also, just in terms of, though, the proposal, I'm not understanding, the proposal is to maintain the garage and then extend this all the way up to the point where it looks like it's about a foot away from the garage. So I don't understand how you do that. How do you repair the garage walls? How do you even build it? There's no place for a human to stand. Is the intention to reduce the garage or
I always thought
something?
that there was a minimum 3-foot distance required.
Okay.
That's usually what we've been our guideline.
And is that a code requirement or?
Honestly, I don't know. That's what we've always applied, that there's a minimum 3-foot distance between the home and the garage. I believe it's the building code requirement.
So maybe the proposal is to get rid of the garage. I just didn't understand, like you can't, a guy can't get in there to put the finished materials on, unless you put them on first and then you install them. I've seen that done. But then you can never paint it again, you can never point it again, you can never anything. Okay.
Could they give us clearer proposed plans that will actually clarify what's being retained and what's new? Because the shadings are very similar.
Oh, okay.
It could just be that we have a bad copy.
Clear existing. And then the zoning data on the drawings don't show the required and proposed front, side, and rear yards, if that could be clarified. It's kind of, you can find the information more or less somehow, but it is all in one place to show what the rules are. Anybody else?
Okay. Item number 2, calendar number 6315BZ, 35 Sutton Place, Manhattan.
Okay, we're still waiting for the community board recommendation. I see that they, that they're supposed to review it on December 6th, so maybe they've already issued that. There was, as far as I could tell, no uniqueness or detrimental reliance argument made. There were no DOB approvals ever obtained. That's kind of step one. Most of the time, detrimental reliance doesn't work if you just went even to the plan examiner, so even just having a permit wouldn't have been sufficient for detrimental reliance. In this case, they seem to have relied on the board, the co-op board. They cite to case law in support of the argument that you don't really need uniqueness to make the A finding, but that's not supported with any of the arguments in the cases, such as how the facts of this case might play into the facts of the cited cases. They just sort of gave the cases to us and hoped that we'll make the connection. It's not very stringent lawyering. I'm not sure why the 1940 case of Boardwalk v. Seashore was provided, since it is a vesting case based on work done prior to a change in the zoning regulations. Reliance on the Panelides series of cases is inapposite, since that was a detrimental reliance case based on DOB approvals that came from the highest levels of the agency when DOB used to allow less than a 1% increase in floor area to overbuilt buildings. It did so in violation of the zoning regulations, and neither it nor the board is now stopped from correcting such practices. That the owner's co-op board allowed the enclosures to be made without permits is not the detrimental reliance that Panelides contemplates. In addition, the court in Panelides discussed the necessity of the greenhouse staircase to connect the different floors of the house, and specifically stated that it was not built to create additional rooms, simply to enlarge the home, as it is in this case. Jane Estates, another case, was also a detrimental reliance case based on validly issued permits. If the applicant, after hearing our comments, actually chooses to pursue the argument, then the brief should provide all the facts of the cases cited, in particular with respect to whether these cases based reliance on validly issued permits, and also provide complete copies of the cases cited with relevant sections highlighted. I noticed we had comments the last time because this was postponed, so maybe you want to go through your comments again?
Well, my comment actually agreed with your comment that as far as what we've seen at the board, this would not meet the good faith reliance test, because it is not this person's approval was not based on any official government interpretation or act. And so this is based on a community board president who probably co-op board, president who was not very knowledgeable about zoning, clearly. Right. So that's where I don't even get out of the starting gate on this case. Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think if they had gone to the DOB to get permits, they may have been instructed and they may have been in a better position that they couldn't enclose these penthouses. And they referred to a TPPN regarding greenhouses, but that has to do with greenhouses in a rear yard, which is not really applicable here. And then if you look at the DOB violation, it was actually issued for 2 different penthouse units, so this is not the only apartment that's affected. Mm-hmm. And it does not seem to me to be in the spirit of the law to permit one tenant to maintain a terrace enclosure and not everybody else in the city.
Right. And everybody, lots and lots of buildings did this. Many enclosed their balconies.
Yeah, I think my concern is it does not, the case laws do not kind of make the argument that they're trying to present, and I just don't think it went through the proper process, and just relying on a board's approval as a reason for it is not something that I'm understanding makes a justification.
The vice chair echoes all of this in her comments and questions. It's
Yeah.
nothing.
And we need the community board's recommendation also. Okay. Oh, actually, I see that the community board land use committee voted not to object to the application, but I don't think that the full board voted yet, or I don't know whether it did.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Item number 3, calendar number 9815 BZ, 240 East 54th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, the website now shows that this is open, so now it's a legalization. So now, although we have fire department sign off before, we need fire department sign off of the alarms and sprinkler systems in operation. It also isn't clear from the application at all that what the uses at the upper floors are, but it's evident that the application that follows this one is in the same building, but the statement of fact should have made that clear. So that should be modified. Oh, the DOB. Okay.
This will look to work on.
Okay, so there's the objection from DOB is incorrect, so it needs to be corrected. Okay, anybody else?
They said something about an existing PCE being somewhere. I think it's on a zoning lot.
On the zoning lot, on the
So if
other
they could just
lot.
clarify what it is and
Yeah.
if they have a permit. I'm sorry.
This particular case, and I think this goes to the second one also, but on this one, it seems there are windows on the ground floor, and there are 2 of them, I think, that are on the west facing. And I just wanted to know if those would be operable windows or those would be closed. From the drawings, it was not clear, and again, it leads to the sound attenuation issue. And also there are windows on the, at least on the plans, they're showing, it has windows on the south side. And I think that abuts a parking lot of a restaurant, but it would be helpful to clarify that.
But the issue is the sound.
It's a sound, yeah.
Okay.
Vice Chair notes there are 3 elevator violations and ECB violations. Wanted to know about those.
I think actually the application does talk about the violations and says, because it was originally a parking garage, so they're related to the parking garage and they're related to the elevators, but when they do the renovation, they're going to be covering the elevators also. Okay.
Okay. Item number 4, calendar number 9915 BZ, 240 East 54th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, this site, this establishment also, its opening, official opening is today. So that means, because I know about how Jim's works, there was a soft opening already, so it means it's been occupied. Did you
Yes,
go?
I did a
saw
site
it.
visit. They're
Yeah.
both open
They're-
and operating, full operation.
Okay, so similar to the other one, we need fire department sign off of the alarms and sprinkler systems. And I guess all the other comments apply because it's the same application.
Yeah, and in this one, on the second floor, the southern wall is set back, so there is a little bit of a roof, which it's not clear if it has a fire exit, and the plan shows there are doors that open onto that roof, so I want to make sure that, again, the sound attenuation issue has been addressed, and that is not going to be used for, it's not part, there aren't any programs proposed for that, and that it will not be used by any of the guests using it. When I'd gone to the site, I had to walk up the stairs because I couldn't find the elevator. The plan shows that there is an elevator, but I looked around, I could not find even a sign saying elevator here. So the plan shows an elevator, and I looked around and I could not
Where is
locate it. So
Show us a picture of the elevator.
yeah, so either I was too tired and I didn't see properly, but I just need to.
I thought it was near the front, no?
It's, the plan shows when you enter it's on the left-hand side. But I do not remember seeing it. There was a banner in front when I went in there, and I did not see any elevator button or anything that would indicate there's an elevator there. The only thing that was visible was the stair door, which was open, and so I just walked up the stairs.
Okay. Okay. Okay, any other comments?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. This concludes the executive session of the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals on December 15th, 2015.
Thank you.
Off once.